41. Welcome back to CW Iowa Live. Lou and Jackie here along with Michael Jankins, bankruptcy attorney. And we're talking about some of the things you need to know about when you file Chapter 7 bankruptcy and what that can do for you.
Yeah, we get calls from time to time, and so I thought I'd talk about this again. People will call and say, can you tell me a little bit about what bankruptcy does? They've heard about it. Obviously, they're suffering some type of stress, otherwise they wouldn't be calling.
Now, when they call in and say they want to talk about bankruptcy, how many different ones are there for you to select from? Which one would be best for them?
For an individual, they're primarily going to be looking at the Chapter 7 form of bankruptcy, which is the type that people generally erase debt. And the other type of bankruptcy that some people look into is called Chapter 13 bankruptcy, which is completely different because instead of erasing the debt, they're actually looking to pay their debt just in a different way, and they schedule a payment program through the bankruptcy court and make monthly payments through a court officer.
So we're going to be talking about the 7, right?
Today we're going to talk about Chapter 7.
And when you say eliminate debts, that gets people a little excited, you know, and wanting to know more. So when we say eliminate debts, what are we talking about?
Well, we're generally going to be talking about unsecured debts. So these are debts that don't have any form of collateral, as opposed to secured debts, and those would be things like your home and your auto payment. So you don't get to have a free home or a free car if you file bankruptcy. If you want to keep those things, you can. You just have to pay those debts. You're not forced to, but then you have to make a decision to let the collateral go. So if you're not going to pay for your home, they get the home back, they being your mortgage company, and you don't owe them anything. And if it's the car, then the car just goes back to Ford or whomever, and you don't owe anything if you were upside down on the car.
So things that will go away are like credit card debts, medical bill debts, some tax things that can build up through your taxes. So can you be more specific on what can go specifically away?
We were talking about generally unsecured debt. So credit cards is a real big one. That's probably #1 on the list.
For most people, is that the biggest thing that usually gets them?
I would say that is probably #1 or #2 of that in medical bills. And we're a consumer spending economy, and so that's what drives this economy, is spending money and buying things. And unfortunately, some people buy too many things and go too many places, and they get overwhelmed and have too much debt. So credit cards can be gone. Medical bills can be gone. So even with insurance, we just see so many people have not the best insurance plan, and so even with insurance, you can still end up owing tens of thousands of dollars if you have repeated medical events that require hospitalization and things. And even $10,000 can really be quite a tough deal for somebody. I mean, if someone's out there making $15 an hour, having a $10,000 medical bill plus other debts just isn't very easy. They may still have a car payment they might need to make so they can get to work, and it's tough. So those are the two biggest ones. Well, sometimes people can't afford their cars, and so their car gets repossessed. And typically when a car gets repossessed, they usually take a big loss on the vehicle because many people are financing cars for 6 years and sometimes longer, and they're trading in cars that don't have enough value to fully cover the balance owed. So some of that previous loan, when they trade it in, gets stuck on their new loan, and so it can be pretty bad when their car gets repossessed. And we see people owing $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 even after they've sold the vehicle and credited the sale price.
But this can help with that.
That gets rid of it. It's just a general unsecured debt, so that's gone. Another big debt that exists from time to time is when people do lose their homes. They may have second mortgages on their homes, or home equity loans, or home equity lines of credit. Well, when the foreclosure happens, those mortgages get eliminated off the property by the first mortgage, and they're left basically holding nothing. So they look to the person that borrowed the money in the first place and go, okay, well, there's no more house there to protect us, so we want it from you. And sometimes they sue people for the money. And it's usually going to be a pretty large amount. So it gets rid of those. So if you lost your house in foreclosure and you had a second mortgage, you can get rid of that second mortgage too.
So continuing to talk about if you file for Chapter 7, what it can do for you, what are some things that people can get back if they do file for Chapter 7?
Well, if you file bankruptcy, you get to protect certain property. I'm not sure about necessarily getting something back.
Like if you get your driver's license back.
Yes. I mean, if you get in an accident, you're required in this state and in most states to have car insurance.
Right.
And if you don't, you get in an accident, you get fined. Actually, if you don't and you get stopped by the police, you can still get fined. And so if there's no insurance coverage and it was your fault, then you can end up owing a lot of money, and the penalty is they take away your driver's license for not having insurance. And so then it's a debt, and you can file bankruptcy to be able to get your driver's license back. And not only can you get it back, you can avoid the reinstatement fee that the DOT charges, which I think is a couple $100s. Some people just lose their license for various reasons, a DWI, or they got too many tickets in a certain period of time. So they've got to pay a fee to the state to get their license back when they're eligible again.
Right.
But in bankruptcy, they can't make you pay this fee, although that's probably the least of the person's
So you're not
concerns.
you don't have a license because you have a debt based on the fact you didn't have insurance for when you were driving.
Right. Well, you got in an accident and caused the debt because there's no insurance to pay the other driver for his wrecked car and his injuries. And so now instead of American Family, your insurance company or Progressive or somebody paying them, and that's why you have insurance, well, you're responsible for paying them and you don't have any money. The DOT usually requires that when you didn't have insurance, they make you post a bond for some multiple times the potential damage that was caused by the accident, which again, most people wouldn't have, otherwise they would have had insurance and made their premium payments.
And if you're in that level of debt, a lot of times your wages can be garnished, and that's another thing you can get back if you file.
If you're you want to stop wage garnishments when you file bankruptcy, or that's one of the reasons people come to see us. They've been taken to court because they didn't pay their debts, whether it be credit card or medical bill or even on these car repossessions. And so the next thing after they get the judgment is try to collect it, and the most popular way is garnishment of wages. And so when they do that, the creditor can start taking 25% of a person's take-home pay, and they can do it for 4 months at a time.
Wow.
And so
that's a lot.
It leaves the person in a pinch. Well, the bankruptcy will stop those things. I would think if it was me, the first time they happened to me, if I had a lot of debt, I'd be seeing a bankruptcy lawyer. But we have people that have let themselves been garnished 2 and 3 different times during a year from different places. And after a couple rounds of that, they finally go, you know, I can't do this anymore.
Right.
Then they come seek your advice.
And then they come and seek my advice.
Now, something else I want to touch on, because this is most interesting. We actually talked about this before the cameras went on here this morning. It says potentially eliminate overpayments of Social Security benefits. And didn't quite understand what that was, but when you explained it, it made perfect sense.
Well, and the kind of benefits I'm talking about are Social Security disability and sometimes SSI, which is for people that are disabled but haven't worked enough years to qualify for the disability part. It's a much lower form of Social Security payment versus $800 or $900 or $1,000 a month. You might get $400 or $500, and it's not based upon what you paid in. It's really a government entitlement. But there's restrictions. When you're getting disability, you're not supposed to be able to work. And if you're getting Social Security disability, they give you opportunities to try and work, and I believe you can work up to 9 months full-time and to see if you can work, because it's always better for everybody, the government, the person, if they can actually get back to working and not rely on Social Security. You can also work part-time when you're on Social Security disability and earn money within certain limits. So again, it's part-time. They restrict how much you can even earn in a month, and the person's supposed to report those earnings to the Social Security. I don't know all the details about where they're supposed to report. I just know that they're supposed to report this somewhere. And even for people that send the information in, I've represented some of those people, and they say, well, I sent in everything I was supposed to, but they said I made over $100 more than I could make that month, and so they say I'm not entitled to benefits anymore. And it takes the government typically a long time to do almost anything. So a couple of years will go by, and all of a sudden the government will send a letter to these people saying, oh, you owe us $20,000 in back benefits. And it doesn't really take a long time to get there. I mean, if someone's getting $1,000 a month, I mean, it's not going to take a long time. And they just go, well, you earned this $100 more over than what you could that month, and so they just disqualify you from that point forward. And people can appeal and go through all kinds of things, but at least they can, if they end up being stuck for it, they can still file bankruptcy on that obligation and still get benefits in the future. Because otherwise the government starts taking it back out of your benefits if you're getting them. And these people just can't afford that.
Right.
And the only little wrinkle to that is if somehow the government were to make a determination that this was done with an intent, where there was some kind of bad motive or fraud, where a person was intentionally working and not reporting when they should have known better and just tried to collect benefits and also work, they could seek to prevent that from going away, but they'd have to show that this was an intentional thing.
Right.
And most of the time it's an innocent mistake even when it happens.
All right, so now if you have any questions about this or even potentially improving your already ruined credit score by doing this, just get a hold of Michael and he'll be able to give you some assistance. And the best number to get a hold of you, Michael, is? You
can reach me at 255-1855, or you can find me on the internet at www.iowa-bankruptcylaw.com.
There you go. So interesting things to think about on Chapter 7 bankruptcy. We will be right back. It is 8:52 right now. You're watching CW Iowa Live in West Des Moines.